Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Rubbing is Racing. I'm your host, Mr. CJ Sports. With me, I have my co-host, one of the most knowledgeable guys I know when it comes to NASCAR and more specifically racing, Steve Billmeyer, the host of, just drew a blank, Racing with Big Sweat on Thursday nights. Got him on Monday nights with me to co-host over here. How are you doing tonight, Steve?
I'm doing good. How about yourself, Jason?
I can't complain. Was kind of aggravated because I was supposed to do media out there Saturday night at the Charlotte Motor Speedway for the Bank of America 500s, and the weather didn't cooperate. And it was a little more aggravating because I had to rent a car for 2 days because I couldn't return it back on Sunday. So I just seen this big dollar sign sitting outside of my work all day Sunday, and then because I had to shift my schedule around and have a short day Saturday, I had to have a long day Sunday. So it was from 5 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night was my shift yesterday. And what makes things even worse is the fact that I went from being at the track and was going to be there firsthand till I didn't even get to see it until today on the replays. I didn't even get to watch it on TV because I was stuck at work all day. But I'm not going to complain, even though it sounds like it, because in the last 3 years, about 20, 25 races, this is the first one that I have not been able to actually get to watch because of the weather. So in almost 3 years, this is the first one, so I really can't say too much.
Yeah, it pretty much rained all over North Carolina all day Saturday, and to tell you the truth, it didn't really bother me that they postponed it on Sunday because I'm not a fan of NASCAR running on Saturday nights anyway.
See, that's probably where me and you differ because I love the Saturday night race. On my bucket list of tracks, it was neck to neck Daytona 500 and Bristol Saturday night racing. And I know part of it's got to do with Bristol, but I enjoyed the night races. I like the strategy that's got to play into as the sun goes down and it gets cooler and the track cools off. Plus, I just like night races. I don't know. I went to local tracks on Friday, Saturday nights. That's what I was used to, and so I enjoy the night races.
Yeah, that's me. I love Saturday night racing as long as it's not cup racing. I don't know if it's like this in other parts of the track country or not, but here in the Southeast, if NASCAR has a Saturday night race, none of the local tracks will race against them on Saturday night because nobody will come out. They all stay home and watch it on TV, having a viewing party, or they go to the race themselves. So it's been argued from New Hampshire Motor Speedway they want to put up lights and change one of their races from a Sunday afternoon to a Saturday night. And if they do that, that's another Saturday night that the local tracks lose. So I'm kind of like, keep them on Sunday where they've always been. The occasional one is nice, but it's getting a little overcrowded on Saturday nights now.
Also, on the West Coast, it's got to be nice as well because even a night race, being 3-4 hours behind, now they're watching their race at 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon their time, where it'd be 7 o'clock our time. So
yeah,
they got their advantages as well.
Yeah, it's when you start getting into the time zone, it really messes things up. My son's in the Air Force stationed in Japan, and it's 13-hour time distance for him, so the NASCAR races come on in the middle of the night or early in the morning, so he's got away from watching NASCAR, and he's a big Formula One fan now because their times are more evenly distributed to Japan and other foreign countries. So we talk, and he teaches me about foreign countries, and I teach him about NASCAR.
It was the way it was when I was overseas. I know that, like the World Series went on, and especially the Super Bowl, it being such a late game, I want to say it was sometime around midnight, maybe 2 o'clock in the morning or so when it started our time. we would get out of the next day activities, or at least have a half day, so we didn't have to go in first thing in the morning, so we could watch the big events like the World Series and the Super Bowl while I was overseas as well.
Yeah, definitely. So that's kind of why I don't watch much Formula One, because it's on a strange schedule here in the States. While I've mentioned him, let me give a shout out to my son, Senior Airman David Billmeyer. He's a cool kid, and I love him to death, and I miss him while he's over there. And he kind of followed in the old man's footsteps. He's a crew chief also, except he's a maintenance crew chief on a C-130 airplane, one of those big-ass haulers. So I'm proud of him, though. He's a great kid, and like I said, I love him and miss him.
Tip our hats to all the military out there. It just seems that this world keeps going crazier and crazier. So our thoughts and prayers definitely with your family and all the families out there that have military that is deployed all across the world right now. I'll tell you what, interesting race Saturday, or Sunday. Even from the opening lap, and we'd even make it one lap without having a caution flag. To all the way to, I won't say all the way to the end, but it wasn't really much going on that last 50 laps or so, other than Harvick trying to run down Logano, which never happened. But very interesting race and very interesting shakeup in the I would say points, even though this is the first race in this round, but it was kind of I don't know, things are kind of shooken up. We had drivers finishing towards the back that hadn't really been finishing towards the back all year.
Yeah, it kind of, as the race went on, it kind of thinned out the chase competitors. So it kind of, boiled down to just Logano and Harvick there at the end. But you're right, from the opening lap on through, it was a very interesting race. Jed Burton crashed on the first lap, and we had the race thread going, and immediately Facebook lit up about how he's not much of a driver. He made a mistake taking that ride and everything, and people don't realize that, yeah, he's in a low-budget team, and yeah, they don't run that good, but he's in the garage all week, every race. All the other drivers are seeing him every race. Car owners and sponsors are seeing him in the garage. And that's how you land a better ride, is you get your name out there and your face out there. So, yeah, even though it's not a great deal as far as racing goes, it's a great deal for him. And I think he made the right move moving up.
Charlotte painted their lines on the wall on the inside of the track so the fans could see, widen the restart zone, and even painted lines on the track to make sure that they helped eliminate any controversy this weekend. One, what was your thoughts on it? And two, was it successful in your opinion?
It's a step in the right direction, painting the lines across the track, because it makes it more visible and a little bit more precise for NASCAR to judge where the drivers are going. With just a stripe on the wall, you have to see that stripe out of your peripheral vision while you're looking at the track. And now if you've got the lines there, it's a lot easier to see. It's, like I said, it's a step in the right direction, but NASCAR's got to come up with something else where it's not so much a judgment call.
Now, I know that they had representatives, I forget which track they were talking about, either watching or they were going to be there to see how it played out. Because I know one of the concerns was the lines being on the track, whether it would cause tire spin, which I don't think we witnessed that. So my two questions to you is, one, I know there was talks that they widened the zone a little bit, which they felt that kind of resulted into one of the bottle accordion effects, I guess is the word they used, later in the race, because it was so wide and the guys in the back were ready to go. And, of course, with the wider zone, the guys in the front took their time, and it's their right to. but it kind of they felt caused accordion effect, which caused some issues. But also, should we, or do you think we'll see any more tracks at least this year with this zone painted, so there's no more controversy for this year?
I doubt we'll see any more. The only place I could think of would be at Atlanta, because that's a Bruton Smith owned track, and he's pretty forward about things like that. He's usually the first one to come up with something new, which, you know, the lines on the track this weekend at Charlotte, that's something new, first time done, and that's his track. So I don't see much chance of anything changing at the other tracks for right now, but probably next year, depending on if they can get any electronics to monitor that restart deal, you'll probably see more lines on there. I don't believe the theory that the lines will make you spin your tires. For a number of years, well, up until they went to electronic scoring, there was a line painted on the track that wasn't the start-finish line, but that was a scoring line. That every time you crossed that line, that was when they scored your car. And I never heard of anybody spinning the tires on that or on the start-finish line for that matter. So I don't believe that argument. I like the idea that they made the restart zone bigger because it gives the driver more opportunities, the leader rather, more opportunities to jump out in front and continue to lead the race. The guys, the accordion we're in a world of trouble. And with that wider restart zone, that makes it a lot harder to try to anticipate when the leader's going to go and what point he's going to go. So I like that idea. I just, you know, like I said, they got to come up with some way to monitor the restarts a little bit better. I think it was Logano at one of the restarts yesterday. They showed 3 or 4 days, and he left before he got to the first line, but it wasn't critical. I mean, he was only a couple of feet away from the line when he left, so it kind of became a judgment call as to what NASCAR was going to do, and they decided not to do anything, which was the smart thing to do.
Yeah, they were talking about that, I want to say, on NASCAR America or one of them, the same scenario where, yeah, he might have left early, but it was only a foot or two, and so, you know, it was kind of NASCAR's decision, and they felt that that was the right decision not to penalize Logano for when he left, or restarted the race anyway. So, yeah, I agree. You know, with us having the opportunity at home to watch replays and per hour and getting to see it in slow-mo, it's a lot easier for us to kind of dissect things. It's the same thing in NFL when they replay whether or not a player
doing and 10% on what the other car's doing, well, the other cars concentrate 100% on what they're doing. So that gives them an advantage. That's a little edge, and you keep gathering these little edges until they become a regular edge, and you gather some more, and they're a big edge. So I think it's the same deal. It's a lot going on like Darrell Waltrip used to do. He would talk, the whole end of the championship season and keep you thinking about him instead of thinking about the job at hand.
Now, was in wrong, or maybe both of them were in wrong, and I'm referring to both Kyles. As they got together going on pit road, as Kyle Larson in the last second decided he was going to dip down, and Kyle Busch in the last second decided he wasn't going to go into the pits, which I don't think he really fooled anybody, especially since they were in about 4 laps before that. Do you fault anybody at that? Was that just pit stop tragedy, or should things been done any differently? When you make the decisions, and I know that you're kind of playing with fire when when the drivers kind of do the wait till the last second to stay on or go off, you're taking that risk. And I would think a team in the chase, such as Kyle Busch, that had to get a second place finish to even make it into this round. Maybe you wouldn't play, with so much, I don't know, I'm not going to say play, but I would think you would be a little more conservative because you knew what happened the first couple races in the last round that
It's a good example of that.
Now, we've seen a handful of drivers in the chase not have a great day. Carl Edwards and Dale got had a little run in. Kenseth found himself in the wall. To me, it kind of it changed everything we kind of seen going into this next round. We didn't see the Joe Gibbs Racing guys necessarily be as dominant. Let's say what's going to the chase, because I think after last week, Kevin Harvick's domination of Dover kind of changed our opinion a little bit on Joe Gibbs Racing in the sense that we know that Kevin Harvick has got a car that can beat everybody any given Sunday or Saturday night or whatever this is. Well, there's no more Saturday night races, so any given Sunday at this point.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of changed our view now that we watched Joey Logano be so dominant this Sunday. We watched Kevin Harvick be so dominant the previous Sunday. Has this last couple weeks at all changed your opinions, or maybe the opinions of your group? NASCAR and other racing, for those that are not part of the group, you need to make sure you get over there and check them out. But has it changed the opinion across the board at any point about Joe Gibbs Racing, or was this just a couple weeks that, it was what it was?
Yes, indeed. Yesterday changed my opinion quite a bit because JGR was so dominant in May at Charlotte. They won the 600. They won the open race. The All-Star race. They were really dominant in May, and to come back in October and really not be that strong all day between all of the cars, I can't figure out, what happened, what they were doing. I don't think they were all experimenting with a new setup or new engine package or something like that. I could see maybe one or two of them do it, but not all four of them. I really don't understand how 4 teams with the talented crew chiefs and drivers they've got could all miss the setup and not run as strong as they have run in the past.
A lot of names surprised me. Matt Kenseth's 42nd place finish, Jimmy Johnson's 39th place finish, Dale Jr.'s 28th place finish. Stewart had his problems, 26th. Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, 21st, 20th and 21st. I mean, hell, Danica Patrick beat all those names I just mentioned, and multiple of those drivers are in the chase. It was definitely a weekend that was kind of unexpected, in my opinion. I mean, other than the fact that the race got moved. And do you think that had a lot to do with the fact that those cars were set up and they were all in the mindset to be a night race, and then everything got switched to a Sunday day race that was extremely warm, a lot warmer than what we was planning anyway, and you know, just different weather and different scenarios there?
Yeah, definitely so. You in Charlotte especially, it's a track that you run a quite different setup at night than you do during the day. One thing that makes Charlotte so interesting is their races, you know, start late afternoon and go into the night. Mm-hmm. So the crew chiefs have to really be up on the box to adjust the cars the night goes on for the change in weather and stuff. And that, coupled with the rain, which washed all the rubber off the track. So the track had the rubber in again. These guys were kind of set up toward the tight side because at night, when the track rubbers in, a lot of times that track will get slick, and they'll need a slightly tight setup to stay competitive, where the first couple of rounds of pit stops yesterday, it seemed like all the drivers were hollering, I'm tight in the middle, I'm tight in the middle, I'm tight coming off. So, you know, it really affected the way they could race until they got their car dialed in. And I think it's one of the things that helped Logano. I can't remember his crew chief's name, but they were talking to him, and he said that they anticipated the race being rained out Saturday night and rescheduled for Sunday. So before they went through inspection, they changed the setup on their car to a Charlotte daytime setup instead of having a Charlotte nighttime setup. And he was one of the few at the first few pit stops that said he was loose, where everybody else said they were tight. So I think that move had a lot to do with his success as much as anything else.
Now speaking of the change, and that was going to end up being my next question, when a race gets rained out on a Saturday night or a night race and moves to a day race, are the crews allowed to touch their cars, or are they still off limits with the change of the track condition and the change of the time of the race?
No, the rule is once your car goes through inspection and is pushed out on the line, you can't do anything to it. If you do, there's a penalty in there. It's like if you're pushed out and you have a flat tire, you know, tire even goes down while you're sitting there. Well, yeah, you can change the tire, but you have to start at the back of the pack when the race starts. And I think all they let them do when it's a rain out from one day to the next is reset the air pressure in the tires, because the tires will bleed off some air as they sit for a while. So I think that's pretty much all you can do, is you have to go get an official to come stand there with your tire man and watch him reset the air pressure in the tires, and they won't let you do anything else.
With the race condition changing, it going from a night race to a day race, should NASCAR think about altering that rule so we don't have we basically had about 40 cars on one gameplay, and I'm sure Joey wasn't the only one, but I'm venturing to say it was probably only 2 or 3 of other drivers that maybe changed their setup at the last minute, so that we don't have maybe some of the scenarios or some of the situations. Or are you fine with the fact that you know, if it gets changed, then, you know, you got 500 miles to make the adjustments to be relevant in the race?
I don't think, I like the rule the way it is. Don't let them touch nothing. And there's no need to coddle these guys or try to make things easy for them. they're professionals, and that's part of racing is hitting the setup or missing the setup. In my opinion, don't let them change a thing. If the race changes dates, impound cars, and make them run it the way it is, and do away with that damn competition caution. That is nothing but a crutch for the crew chiefs to rely on. Back in the day, you didn't have a competition caution. You know, if the track changed because of weather or something like that, you know, because it rained the night before or whatever, too bad. Suck it up, Buttercup. You got to fix your car. They didn't give you an opportunity to fix your car without any kind of penalty of losing a position or losing a lap or anything. That's the rule that I don't like. I just don't like having a competition caution. It just makes no sense to me.
Now, I pulled up the weather app while I was there to see if we was even getting a race tonight. And so I know that these race teams all had the same information. And basically it says 75% chance of rain all the way up until like 10 o'clock at night. So, and I didn't pull it up. And this is how clueless I was. Normally I pay attention to the weather. When I know I'm going to a race, I pay attention to the weather that day. And then I also try to plan my work schedule around, okay, if there's a rain delay, I can't work the next day, or I will not be back in town the next day until later that night, or depending on how far the track. In other words, if it was Charlotte, I normally I wouldn't have planned on, I'd have kept my schedule in the early part of the day clear. So in other words, if they would have ran at noon, I would say, look, I can't work until about 6 o'clock or whatever. I had no idea. I went to work. I had to get up at 4:30 in the morning. I had to be working at 5 o'clock Saturday morning. And when it was starting, it was starting to break, and it was actually starting to be light outside a little bit. I had a customer come in saying, "Looks like it's getting ready to be ugly out there. It looks like it's getting ready to rain." And I'm like, I hope it gets done and over with now, because I got a race later on today, and I don't need it to be raining. And that's when he informed me that no, it's supposed to rain all day long. It's not supposed to stop. So that's how clueless I was. But these race teams have this information. They go into this weekend and go into, especially that day, knowing what the scenario is, and especially Friday night. How come, knowing that there was a good chance that race was not going to happen, why didn't other drivers or other crew chiefs make that adjustment or make that call?
In short answers, they're not as sharp. They didn't think about that. Or they had already got their car through inspection early, and then, they found out that the rain was definitely going to be there all night. There was a lot of talk all afternoon and evening about, well, there's a break in the showers here, and there's a break in the showers there, and everything. And they took a chance or chose not to change their cars, and Logano did, and the end result was it helped him a lot more than it did the others, because he didn't have so much to overcome at the start of the race. They could concentrate more on what their car was doing then and how to keep it good throughout the race, as opposed to the other guys trying to figure out how they could fix their car first and then catch up and be thinking ahead about how the race is going to go.
Martin Truex finished third. He's still hanging around there. We've talked a lot about him this year, especially with his 20 top fives 19 top 10s that he had this year, and the victory to get him into the chase. At points would have gotten him in anyway, but they ended up winning, putting the 78 car in the victory lane. Sitting third comfortably at this point. Looking at some of the names that are outside of the top 8 that get advanced, Ryan Newman, Kyle Busch, Dale Jr., and Matt Kenseth obviously got a hole to dig out of themselves. How important is next week, knowing that the third race in this chase is Talladega, kind of the wild card, and you really can't count on any really notes or anything, because at any point in time you could be mixed up in the big one?
You need to go ahead and get a frosty beverage and sit down for that Kansas race. It's going to be a very good race, because there's really nothing you can do to plan for Talladega or have any kind of strategy for Talladega, because, like you said, it's a wild card deal, and it's pretty much a case of where anybody can win that race, chaser or non-chaser. So the chase teams will all be looking at this weekend as the weekend they need to get into the chase. They need that victory to keep them going in the next round. So I think the competition and the racing is going to be very good this weekend. I think it's going to be a lot better than what we saw, say, during the season at that track.
Now, we got a lot of Gordon faithfuls out there, and we are finishing up his final year of of NASCAR, and he is still hanging around. As we had one Hendrick car not make the chase, we had one Hendrick car already eliminated from the chase, and we got Junior sitting about the 11th spot, sitting outside of that the next bracket. Gordon sitting in 7th, just inside. I know a lot of people, and I've seen different articles, why Gordon's going to win the chase this year, and this, that, and the other. Even though Hendrick Motorsports has not really been relevant in NASCAR since the first couple months, I think it's been pretty much Penske and Joe Gibbs Racing since the first couple months after Johnson got his win and Junior got his wins. Are these fans out there holding on to false hope, or can the 24 Rainbow Warrior team pull something together that is really kind of unheard of or unexpected all of a sudden? Because right now, him being the leading Hendrick Motorsports sitting in 7th place, I don't have a lot of confidence in that 24 team or even Hendrick Motorsports at this point.
Yeah, it's more wishful thinking by Gordon Nation than anything else. The thing that I see is Hendrick Motorsports hasn't really shown anything different, or I don't know the word I'm looking for, more improved than what the other teams are doing. And that's a lot of what it takes to win a race now, especially in the chase, is you've got to do something different. You've got to think outside the box. And back to Logano yesterday, I mean, they made the call to take a chance on change that setup, and it worked for them, and that's the kind of thing you've got to do. And I haven't seen that out of any of the Hendrick teams, really, and I don't see Jeff pulling a rabbit out of a hat and winning everything there is to win. I don't really see any of the Hendrick cars in the grade 8, the last 2 brackets. I don't see it. You know, I just think all in all, it's going to be an off year for all of Hendrick Motorsports. And I'm sure it'll motivate them to come back strong next year, but that's not going to help them this year.
Now, I know going into the chase, the wins were important. That first round, you got those bonus points for your wins. But then going into the contender round and each round after, everybody gets reset. So wins really don't make a difference other than it gets you into the next round. With that being said, I know a lot of drivers last year, they took advantage of the opportunity, well, if you want to call it that, and it kind of would test other things, especially Logano in his scenario right now. You done won Charlotte, so really Kansas and Talladega is kind of off weeks, and you can do what you want and, you know, test different things or you know, change different variables. But as a crew chief, and you've had the opportunity to kind of dictate how things went before, wouldn't it make more sense to kind of put your best foot forward still so you can potentially win some other races and help maybe put put your foot down on somebody's throat that is already down, such as Matt Kenseth at this point, Dale Jr., and make sure that they don't win to get in, especially Kenseth. I mean, if I'm Logano and his crew chief, I'm going out to Kansas and I'm trying to win. I do not want to give Matt Kenseth, especially the way Joe Gibbs Racing was for 2 or 3 months, an opportunity to slip back into the next round.
Yeah, that's what the drivers and crew chiefs are thinking, but the car owner is looking at the big picture, and like Penske, now that Logano's guaranteed for the next round, they're going to put all their effort into getting Brad Keselowski in the next round. Logano's team is not really going to go for another victory as much as they're going to try to contribute help to Keselowski's team. I think it was New Hampshire last year that Brad had got in the chase before that, and then Logano got in, and it was a lot of Brad doing stuff and relaying the information to Logano's team to try to help them out. They were on different pit schedules. Logano was pitting every caution, where Brad was staying out every caution to see how the car did on a longer run and which way would be the better way to go if it came down to a late caution at the end of the race, whether to stay out or come in. So it's a lot of help there if you've got a teammate that's already in that can help you get in. But then again, back to Hendrick Motorsports, it's kind of like the Toyota teams were and still are. There's not a lot of sharing of information or anything going on there. Everybody's pretty much got the top of their list is to help their team, and then on down the line help the other team, but they're looking out for their team first.
I don't know. I'm looking at it as I got Kyle Busch, and I'm not worried about Ryan. I know that they can win it. I know Junior and Ryan Newman, Ryan Newman was second last year in points without a win, so we know Ryan Newman can be a factor. But, honestly, right now, I'm not factoring in Junior or Ryan Newman outside of the top. They're outside of the top 8. But you got Kyle Busch and Matt Kenseth. And I'm sorry, as long as Brad Keselowski is either still in the top 8 or if he has an opportunity to win to maybe let up. But if I'm that 22 team or the Penske team, and as long as Brad Keselowski's having a good day, top 5, top 10, and if Logano has the car, I'm putting my foot down on both those throats. I do not want Kyle Busch, nor do I want Matt Kenseth, especially the way they performed the second half of the season, to see the next round. And that's the game plan I would go with versus, trying to strategize and try different things like they did last year to help Keselowski. Keselowski is a good enough driver, and like I said, as long as he's having a good day now, obviously if something's happening and he's having a bad day, then, I'm trying to figure out ways to help and use Logano as a test dummy. But, I don't know. I'm scared of Kyle Busch and Kenseth and what they can do and what we've seen them be able to do with all the wins they've gotten this year. I'm trying to eliminate any possibility of me bringing home a championship. And honestly, if that's at the cost of one of my guys not making it to next round as well, I would rather, as Penske, Keselowski not make it to the next round and eliminate Kyle Busch and Kenseth at the same time versus helping Keselowski, but then give an opportunity for Kenseth and Busch to make it into the next round.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and, especially since JGR has been so strong all year, and I think that would kind of be the mindset of the Penske organization is, number one, get Brad into the next round, but at a close second, they would want Joey to win at Kansas because, with winning two out of the 3 races in one bracket, that really eliminates who's going to move on. Like you said, you've got those 4 teams at the bottom. Well, if Joey wins this weekend, all 4 of those guys aren't going to move up. That's going to eliminate 1 or 2 of them right there because there's no opening left for a race winner, and they'll have to do it on points, and I don't think their points are that close, especially if the guys in the top 8 all run good and everything. So, yeah, you want to knock the other guys out and pin them down, like you said, but I don't think they want to do it so much at the expense of Logano's deal and what he's going to be capable of doing.
Gotcha. I don't know. I'm just scared of those two drivers. And, obviously, I'm a Kyle Busch fan, so I want to see him get in the next round. But, if I'm any of the other teams out there, I'm scared of what I've seen the last 2 or 3 months. And there's a casualty of war. And I'm sorry, but if I'm Logano in the Team 22, Keselowski might have to be a casualty of war to ensure that those two other cars, the 18 and the 20, doesn't make it to the next round, and that would be my mind frame. And I know we are a team off the track, but when we're on the team, when we're on the track, and when it comes to the championship, I'm Team 22. I'm not Team 2. So that's kind of my whole logic of thinking. Mark Truex is still in this chase, and very much so with a third place finish. How important is it for this Team 78 to continue the run they have, especially in NASCAR, and the fact that the smaller teams usually don't fare out well? I mean, does this help with them doing well? Does this give hopes to other small teams? Will this help continue bringing other teams to potentially keep this sport growing, or does them having the run they have really not have a bearing on it?
Yeah, it has a good bearing on it. Just the fact that they're a small team, that they've proven they can accomplish these bigger goals before. A couple of years ago when Kurt Busch was driving for him, he got in the chase as a single-car team with that same organization, Furniture Row Racing. And they've got... everybody thinks being in Denver, Colorado is a disadvantage to them, but the only disadvantage is it just takes UPS a day longer to deliver parts and takes them more time to travel to the East Coast tracks. And all you've got to do is look back at the mid-'80s at what Bill Elliott and his organization did, and they were the exact same thing. They were a small one-team organization, not in Charlotte, off by themselves. And so that way, if nothing else, you don't have any of the other crewmen stopping by your shop and wanting to chat while they're really there to spy on what you're working on and see what you're doing and everything. So, I mean, that's a good deal for Furniture Row, and I think they're starting to realize that, and they're going to keep using it to their advantage.
What should we expect to see at Kansas next week? Not only strategy wise, but track wise, and what kind of racing are we looking to see?
That track has gotten pretty fast. It's kind of rough, but it's a fast track, so it's going to be a lot of hard racing. And like I said, you need to win that one instead of pinning all your hopes on winning at Talladega. Although Keselowski did that last year, he went to Talladega in a must-win situation and pulled it off. But I think a lot of teams would rather have that victory at Kansas and not have to pin all their hopes on what happens at Talladega. Every time I think about Kansas, I think about Jimmy Johnson and Carl Edwards racing for the win a few years ago, and on the last lap, they came down the backstretch side by side, and Carl Edwards never lifted. He was hellbound and determined to get that lead, and he ricocheted off the wall and still finished second, but Johnson won, and they asked him, why did you drive so hard in the corner when he was being interviewed? And he told them, well, it worked on the Xbox, so I wanted to see if it would work here. And that's going to be a lot of their attitude. They're going to be pushing the envelope and trying everything they can. I can't overemphasize how important that Kansas race is going to be to get them away from the do-or-die situation at Talladega.
Now, we also had an Xfinity Series race on Friday night in Charlotte. I got the opportunity to watch that race. Good race. We watched Austin Dillon sweep the Xfinity Series races at Charlotte. Put on a performance. Started off the night with fireworks going off and him being hit by it and catching a little fire or whatever, and then finishes the night with a attempt at his slide, belly flop slide or whatever you want to call it, and ends up being more of a tumble. But unfortunately for Austin Dillon and the RCR guys, it was kind of overshadowed with two different things. Obviously the points chase, which kind of narrowed their gap a little bit. We'll talk about that in a second. But also the Kyle Busch and Kasey Kahne getting together, and we know that they've bumped heads and over the last couple years. And obviously Kasey Kahne from his interview has not forgotten it, and kind of not necessarily came out and point blank told Kyle Busch you might as well just leave Friday night as Friday night and not bring this into Saturday, especially as Kyle Busch is in the chase. But kind of let him know to just go ahead and he's not going to retaliate. It is what it is at this point. One, did you get an opportunity to see the Friday night race? And two, are we going to start seeing more of a beating and banging of these two, especially if Kyle Busch doesn't happen to make the next round? I think Kasey Kahne will be respectful while Kyle Busch is in the chase. But let's say Kyle Busch gets eliminated in the chase. Does that change anything in Kasey Kahne's mind?
I think what's going to have the biggest effect on that is tomorrow Kyle's got to go to NASCAR and him and Dale Jr. have got to have a talk with NASCAR about comments they made after the race yesterday, complaining that NASCAR didn't get the track cleaned up for that restart and all this.
Oh, yeah.
And, that's a violation of the Denny Hamlin rule. You don't talk negative about NASCAR. You can talk negative about other drivers and other tracks and stuff, but you don't dog NASCAR or they'll get you back.
Yeah.
And, it's very simple for NASCAR to do that. They can keep you in inspection all day and make you miss a race because you can't get through inspection because they can find 100 little things wrong with your car. And it's what NASCAR calls a Chinese fire drill. And I've seen, not so much seen, but heard of NASCAR doing that in the past, putting other teams through that and everything to cut down the amount of practice time they get, cut down where they start qualifying and everything. So I'm kind of wondering the conference tomorrow is going to work like the conference in Days of Thunder, or if it's really going to tame Kyle a little bit going into Sunday's race, because he knows NASCAR is going to be watching him because of what happened this past weekend and his comments and everything. And they're going to be watching Dale Jr. too, and they're probably, if they get an opportunity, they'll probably jump in and discipline them.
I had a message come through. I got solely sidetracked with what I was about to say. The points chase in the Xfinity Series. I like... And I was listening to the show, and I like how they broke that down. The fact that Xfinity Series is still kind of on the old school point system where they run. There's no reset, there's no chase, and it gives them an opportunity to what it feels like to run a complete season and have to compete all the way through, not go to a chase and reset. I like that in the fact that the Xfinity Series does that, and I also like that because now we got 4 upcoming drivers. Well, 3 upcoming drivers, and then Regan Smith. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Regan Smith. He's not upcoming. He's just been around the sport for a while and has been in the Sprint Cup Series. But you got 4 drivers, very competitive, 3 upcoming, and Ty Dillon, Chase Elliott, and Chris Buescher. As we get down to the final few races of the Xfinity Series, I don't think NASCAR could ask for a better scenario other than maybe there be like 8 drivers within 38 points versus just 4. I like the chase. I like that all four of these drivers, week in and week out, are very competitive. There's a reason why all four of them are within 38 points. You got your Darrell Wallace that has, DNFs and doesn't necessarily have the top, he's only got 12 top 10 finishes. Everybody in the top four has at least 19 or more top 10 finishes. There's a reason why those four are up there. I like how the scenario is playing out, and I think it's helping NASCAR build more of an audience for the Xfinity Series when you have these young drivers that we're seeing week in and week out be competitive and competing for this championship.
Yeah, it's interesting the differences that are growing between the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series as far as, there's no minimum height rule in Cup now. There is in the Xfinity Series. So that changes the way you set up the car from one day to the next. And the total point system as opposed to the chase, I think it's helping to give the Xfinity Series a little bit better profile, make them a little bit more noticeable. The biggest question I've got is, how does Roush Fenway Racing do so good in the Xfinity Series and suck so bad in the Cup Series? This weekend, really the only one that was out there was Greg Biffle. He had a good qualifying run, but he ran Charlotte back in May. So that wasn't quite that surprising, but it doesn't seem like any of the other teams are learning anything from them. And I don't understand that and don't know what's going on at Roush, but they have got quality drivers and they have got quality equipment that's being proven in the Xfinity Series. So I hope there's some way they can transfer that to their Cup Series deal. But I like the way they're doing the Xfinity Series with the points and the difference in the rules and stuff. It makes it different. I don't want to say difficult, but different for guys like Kyle Busch that'll run the Xfinity Series race the day before the Cup race, to use that race to learn things like how the car does on a long run, how the tires work on a long run, how the track changes throughout the race. He learns all this in the Xfinity race and carries that information over Sunday to the Cup race, and I think it's one thing it gives him an edge. It gives him a little bit more knowledge than the rest of the guys of how that race is going to go. So like I said, I like the direction they're going with the Xfinity Series, and they just need to keep working on keeping those two classes of racers separate and to build an identity for each one.
To kind of answer, in my opinion, your question, why Roush is not so good in the Sprint Cup Series. I mean, Greg Biffle is past his prime. Ricky Stenhouse, well, come on, really, that's Ricky Stenhouse. And as much as I like Trevor Bayne, his glory to fame is winning the 2011 Daytona 500. As much as I like Trevor Bayne, I don't think he's quite ready for the Sprint Cup Series, and that's just my opinion. As much as I like the driver, and as much as I became a fan of him when I got to go to my first Daytona 500 and watch him put Wood Brothers in victory lane into victory lane at Daytona. I just don't think it's there yet. I would like to see him be a force, and also I don't think that Roush Fenway is up to speed when it comes to the Sprint Cup Series. I think Joe Gibbs Racing right now, Penske. I don't even think Hendrick Motorsports right now is up to par. I think it's a two-horse race. Well, I'm gonna say three-horse races. I do not want to discredit that that 78 team. As you know, they're doing something that a lot of teams dream about, and a lot of people said it couldn't happen. Speaking of Junior and talking about the Nationwide Series, I know that there's been a lot of articles going around about the difficulties of being a team owner and just the cost and, the unfortunate of them not being able to bring up some of the drivers that they're wanting to bring up. I know Regan Smith is looking for a ride. He's no longer going to be there. Obviously, they're bringing Elliott Sadler on due to the fact that he has got guaranteed sponsorship that's going to follow him.
Yeah.
How bad do you feel? And I'm not even a Junior fan, and I do feel bad that he's trying to do the right thing and trying to give these talented drivers an opportunity, and just the money ain't there. He's talking about a lot of times that they don't even make money in the Xfinity Series. How bad do you feel for Junior Motorsports, and what does NASCAR need to do differently to make it so that these Xfinity Series teams can provide opportunities and survive, at least make a buck?
Junior talking about how hard it is to get sponsors and how he's got to have sponsors to run these guys and everything. To me, it's just crying crocodile tears. I mean, Junior's got more money than pretty much any other driver and a lot of car owners in NASCAR. Not so much from what he's won in racing, but T-shirt and souvenir sales and his popularity and everything. Those the T-shirts and souvenirs and stuff make him way much more money than racing does. What he gets paid to do that, so I don't believe he has a problem coming up with money to fund a team. I think that's pretty much a given if he wanted to do that. But he also has the ability of being a fan favorite and everything. He can get sponsors more readily than other teams can, but those sponsorship deals come with the attachment of he's got to run so many races flying their colors, and then he's got a limited number of races he can put other drivers in, like Josh Berry, who's one of them that, they say he can't get the funding to run, but the guy's a hell of a driver. I mean, he's won a lot of races at Hickory Motor Speedway, which is a track and an old track. It goes way back in the 50s with NASCAR racing, but I like what he's doing. I like the idea that he's trying to help and propel these younger drivers up the ladder to the next level and everything. I just find it hard to believe that he's hurting for money or hurting for sponsorship. I just can't see that.
The most popular driver since as far back, I don't even know when the last popular driver was not Dale Jr.
Yeah.
And that just blows my mind. I'm sorry, but I just figured the more successful driver would be the most popular driver. Now, as of the last couple of years, yes, Earnhardt and Junior and the 88 team has been successful, but up until then, it was kind of what it was, and for him to be the most popular driver, and I don't know, I guess because you have so many other drivers go villain, like, Brad Keselowski, when he first came on the scene, he was kind of the good guy because Carl Edwards spun him and put him in the air, and everybody kind of sympathized for him. And then all of a sudden, now Brad Keselowski's a bad guy, and I think Kyle Busch, they just got tired right out the gate seeing him. I think Logano had a good following when he was in the Xfinity, the Nationwide Series at the time, and coming up through the ranks, and everybody liked the young kid. But then once he got in the Sprint Cup Series, he became the villain. So I don't think Earnhardt, I don't think Junior could do anything to become the bad guy. I don't think there's a single person out there he can intentionally wreck and tell you when he got out of the car that, yes, I intentionally put him into the wall, unless it's like Gordon's last race or maybe Stewart's last race and intentionally wrecked them. And I still, at that point, I don't know if the opinions of the fans out there would even change on Junior. So I don't think there's anything Junior can do wrong to become a villain.
No, if he did something like that, Junior Nation would say it was somebody else's fault and it wasn't his doing or anything. And you see very few negatives relating to Junior that people say. My favorite one is when people talk about, he hadn't won many races and he's not performing for Hendrick Motorsports like he should. He needs to win more and all this. And I'm like, think about it. Hendrick Motorsports Dale Jr.'s number one priority isn't to win races so much as it is to sell T-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
Hendrick Motorsports gets a cut out of every T-shirt he sells. So that's a moneymaker for Hendrick Motorsports, and it keeps Hendrick Motorsports in a lot of people's minds because of the size of Junior Nation and how big a following he's got. So, yeah, they want him to win races, but I don't think they pout if he doesn't win races. I think, it's kind of a win-win for Hendrick Motorsports having him there. And it's you get a lot of people that have negative attitudes about all these drivers. It's been that way for Kyle Busch for a long time, and I saw today a lot on Facebook about how Kyle Larson is, a nobody. He was hyped to be somebody great, and he hadn't proven anything, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, look at Joey Logano. Joey Logano was hyped to be the greatest thing in the world. When he first started, he jumped in. The JGR car had all the resources and everything and didn't really do anything. And then he went to Penske, and all of a sudden his potential's come out, and he's been a winning driver and a dominant driver for the past 2 years. So, give Kyle Larson some time, and he might turn out to be the next Joey Logano. It takes some time to get used to racing on the Cup level and to learn how to race these guys, because, say what you will, they are way superior as far as drivers as to a lot of the Xfinity drivers. So it's kind of like you have to learn to race all over again when you move up.
And I can't say that Kyle Larson ain't proven anything. Didn't he win the K&M Pro Series championship, and didn't he have a pretty successful Xfinity career?
Yeah, he didn't do bad. He won some races, and he was very competitive a lot of the times. But it's kind of like, as he's moved up, everybody's expected him to set the Cup world on fire and to win a bunch of races and everything, and it hasn't happened. But, there's a lot of other drivers this year that hasn't happened either. I mean, it's a big-time collection of situations that make you a winner in Cup. You've got to have a good driver. A good driver is not going to get you to victory lane. You've got to have a good crew to go with that. And then you've got to have good car. You've got to have good sponsorship. You've got to have a good understanding car owner and everything. It's just a lot of things go into winning races than just being a great driver or just having a great crew chief, or one single thing. It's really an effort of a lot of different situations coming together and working as one, and that's what puts you in victory lane. And Jimmy Johnson's a prime example of that. I don't think with any other crew chief he would have won as many races and championships as he has, but he got lucky and got locked in, and Chad got locked in with guys that they could really work together as and really get something accomplished. You look at Kyle Busch, and especially if you listen to Kyle Busch on the radio during the race, he is without a doubt the smartest race car driver in Cup right now. I mean, that guy can break the corner down into 6 different segments, tell you exactly what his car is doing in each segment and what he thinks the car needs to get it better in certain segments without hurting it in other segments. And I've listened to him at the same time at other races, and he's racing, and at the same time over the radio he's diagnosing what's wrong with the car he's racing, what that car is doing. And he does a lot of that on his own, and a lot of that talent is his talent, and it's kind of like he could do that good with pretty much any crew chief, where with the 48 car, it's always a joint effort. It's always Chad and Jimmy talking and discussing and knowing what the other one needs, and it's two totally different, really, styles of racing, but it works good for each one. So that's a lot of it, too. You just got to find what works best for you and concentrate on doing that and making that situation even better.
I tell you what, Kyle Larson, I still think I think he's deserving of the position he is at. I would like his sophomore season to have been better, but I think that was just circumstances. I don't think he was a one-year hit wonder or whatever you want to call it, coming out his rookie year and putting on the performance. I think the beginning of the year kind of started off slow, but it seems the second half of the season it has picked up for him, and he's been in the top 10 a little bit more than we saw in the beginning of the year. So I'm definitely hoping that that continues to be the trend, and have an opportunity to be around him Monday. And I think I've had more interaction with him than any other driver just from the events I've been at. I like the guy, and I hope that he ends up being a deciding factor here in the real near future on a championship. And that's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, there's a reason they have that term, the sophomore slump, that it seems like everybody, after having a great rookie year, doesn't match that year the second time around. It just seems like, different things happen and you can't copy the success you had the year before. I remember when we first started at Hendrick Motorsports with Jeff Bodine, we came out of the box, ran good all year, won 3 races in the first year and everything, and then the next year didn't do nothing. I had engine problems, wrecks, other things to keep us from running up front and everything, and went from winning 3 races as a rookie team the year before to not even being competitive the next year. So I don't know what it is, but there's something about that second year that just seems to be hard on drivers and such, and I think if he just grits his teeth and gets through this year, he'll come back strong next year.
Well, it's hard to believe it's already 8:15, 15 minutes longer than I thought we was going to go. Steve, before we jumped off, I want to give you an opportunity to plug Thursday night show. If you got guests lined up, go ahead and plug them. If not, just promote the Thursday night show, also the Facebook group, and how they can get a hold of you.
All right, I'm real excited about Thursday night show, to be quite honest with you. Right now we've got Michael Deskins, who is a asphalt late model driver, a guy named Dallas Mazingo, who's down from Mississippi, that our buddy Chris Yellow Caution Flag Creighton is very familiar with and has seen him race a bunch. And we've got a guy, Galen Hassler, who is racing Thursday night in the U.S. Modified Nationals, and he's going to be calling in during the night for about 5 or 10 minutes and let us know live from the track how things are going from him and how the racing's going and what he's working on. So that's going to be really cool, too. So tune in if you can. It's going to be, not only is it going to be a great show, but it's going to be rather educational for me, getting reports from the track as they happen and learning what these guys do and how they make adjustments, doing hot laps and the races and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to that. So tune in and check us out, folks. It's well worth the effort. And you really should, I hate to toot my own horn, but join up with NASCAR and other racing. We have a lot of intelligent and informational, informative discussions. We're not about bashing drivers and stuff like that. We just talk about racing. We have race threads for any televised race, not only NASCAR, but NHRA, Indy, Formula One. If it's on television, we're going to get together and talk about it. We had yesterday's race. We had, I think, 23 people on the thread commenting and 580 comments during the race. So there's a lot of discussion going on, and it's a chance. If you don't know something, you can learn something, and nothing else you can ask. We don't mind, people that aren't familiar with racing might not know the difference between loose and tight and what they're talking about and everything. But if you don't know, get on the thread and just ask. Somebody will answer it for you, and nobody will make fun of you or anything for asking that kind of question. So we try to be about the group and all about the individual. So come join us and see for yourself.
Also, don't forget to check me out. You can hit me on Twitter at CJSports1. You can hit up the 110 Nation at 110 Nation. Don't forget, we got the 110 Nation Sports Show Monday through Wednesday, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yes, in 42 minutes we will be live again over on the Blog Talk Radio Network for the 110 Nation Sports Show. Should have Patrick Taylor for about an hour to talk NFL and just recap over the weekends, all sports. So looking forward to that. We got two great guests coming on Tuesday and Wednesday. I had to put that out later because I don't have that information in front of me. Miss Lee had actually sent me over, as a matter of fact, I can pull it up right now. We got Eric Saunders, and then we got Mason Mitchell making a return to the show as well from the ARCA series. So looking forward to having both of those guys on this week. I think that's all I want to put out there for right now. Make sure you guys check out the website, www.the110nation.com. Also, our blog site, www.the110nationsports.com. Until Thursday night, Steve, you have a great week, and you guys make sure you tune in the rest of this week for all the shows on the 110 Nation Sports Radio Network, and Monday back here at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, let me put out one more thing. Shout out to Thursday night show sponsor, Snafu Seasoning, and Mr. Jimmy Haywood. This is real good stuff, real good grill and rub, and it's good on anything. I put it on bacon, and I didn't think anything would make bacon any better, but that does it. And I sent Miss Lee some, and she messaged me back. She put it on popcorn and said it was fantastic on popcorn. So, I mean, there's 100 uses for it. It's all good. It's all natural. You look at the label, and there's only like 6 ingredients to it, nothing you can't pronounce or no kind of chemicals. So, Jimmy Haywood, thank you for that. Thank you for helping us, and thank you for supporting us. And people go to their website, snafuseasoning.com, and order yourself some.
Yes, most definitely. You guys, make sure you guys check that out. You guys have a great night, and we'll all talk to you later.
We'll see you Thursday, bud.
Yes, sir.